In this video, we're going to talk about macros on the MLS-X1 switcher, how to create them, how to run them, and how to use some of the more enhanced editing features in the new menu system to your advantage. So a macro is a series of events, button pushes or switcher changes that are actioned in sequence reliably on the push of a single button. You can record those, you can design them in the editor, but most importantly, they're there to help you action lots of things at the same time that you might not be able to do in less than a second, or they might be to do a series of actions with very precise timing between them, such as cutting between sources or triggering multiple effects at the same time or multiple other devices attached to the switcher. So let's go through some of the basics on how macros work. You'll probably want to start at the FlexiPad. There's a macro button at the bottom, and that will offer you various banks of macros, which will all be blank to start with. By default, your FlexiPad will have bank 0, bank 1, and bank 2 as options, though you can change this in the menu. Let's work on bank 1 for now, which is macros 10 to 19. The bank system works where essentially the first number in your macro register number is your bank number 2. So bank 1 contains 10 to 19, bank 2 contains 20 to 29, and so on and so forth. That even works in 3 digits once we get to bank 10, where the first macro in bank 10 is 100 to 109. Going back to bank 1, how do we start recording a macro? Push and hold the macro button and push the register you want. You'll see the FlexiPad has switched into edit mode. At this point, the menu will indicate that macro recall is prohibited at the moment because we're in record mode, and the macro button goes red to indicate this. If I then start pushing buttons on my switcher, you'll see the event tally slowly increases with each button push. This is because the switcher is storing the events one after the other. I can hit store, and that will save that macro to macro 10. Now, when I hit macro 10, those actions will be executed. However, unfortunately, all 8 events in this case are happening simultaneously because by default, the MLS switcher will execute all events simultaneously, so the only thing we'll actually see is the final cross point being selected. If I go back to my macro editor, I'm going to remove those steps with the delete button and go back to nothing at all. If I push and hold this auto insert button, it will switch to a function called auto pause. This time the switcher will remember the gaps between my button pushes. So if I go to clip 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then store it, you'll find this time when I run the macro, the switcher will execute that sequence with the pauses I gave it. Clip 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's an easy way to start getting the timing right on your macros. But really we might find we want to tweak that down a little bit more and get a little bit more frame accurate. So let's go over to the menu and have a look at the macro we just created. Over under the register menu, macro, we have some options: edit, edit register, attachment, and timeline. We're going to go to edit register for now, and we're going to find macro 10 that we've just created. You'll see the numbers here, and it's given a default name of macro 10. I'm going to change the name now, and I'm going to call it clip cut, because it cuts between our clips. And then I'm going to edit it with the edit button. You'll now see a graphical representation of the steps I recorded. For each button push, you'll see the ME crosspoint macro event, which is what the event was when I pushed the button, and you'll also see the pause that the switcher inserted between. Now let's say I know exactly the timing I'm looking for, so I'm going to make that a 20 frame pause between all of them. So I'm going to select the pause line, which is event 2, and I'm going to edit the event. This allows me to go through each event and change each parameter individually to exactly what I want. So the event is a pause, which is already selected. The time, I'm going to make 20 frames. So I type 20 in, and I press OK. Now I want 20 frames between all of those, so I'm going to use some of the copy-paste functions to make that a little bit easier. So I'm going to select each pause I've got at the moment, and I'm going to remove it. Now I'm going to take my 20 frame pause, copy it, and then I'm going to paste before each of my button pushes to add that 20 frame pause in. So now I have each of my button pushes with a 20 frame gap between them, and I'm going to store that back on register 10. So now when I run register 10, my clips will cut through again, but with an exact 20 frame pause between each of them. So that's a really easy way to get the timing down and make things exactly right. And it's a very quick way of, if I needed to tweak that to suddenly 15 frames, I could jump back in and do that in the same way. But what if we want to control the pauses ourselves and push the effect on manually? Let's go back to the editor, in the edit macro, and this time I'm going to change the pauses to what's called a pause 0. This isn't actually a 0 frame pause, this is a user wait. By putting 0 in, we're telling the system to wait to be told when to finish the pause. So I'm going to change those to zeros, which I've just done, and then I'm going to save my macro, store it back on 10. This time, when I run the macro, you will see that it's run the first step and then paused. Over on the FlexiPad, there's now a purple take button illuminated, and we can see that we are sat on event 2 of 7. When I hit the take button, the next event will happen, the cut's taking place, and again we're holding. And again, a cut and holding, and again a cut, and we finish the macro. And then I can execute it again, and then I'm choosing how fast the cuts are happening. I run my macro, take, take, take. So next up, let's look at something like a live bug. So on frame memory 15 at the moment, I have a live TV logo, which is sat in the top left corner. Now I can just mix that key on and off, and that will work fine. However, what if frame memory 15 is used for something else, or I need to share resources, or that key is used for something else? We could build a macro to set this up for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is save a key snapshot of key 8, which will save the resizer and key properties, including the source. So I go to key, which is key snapshots up here, key 8, push and hold key, and press the 1. And I've saved key snapshot 1 for key 8. Then I'm going to start building my macro, and this time we're going to do it from the menu. So I'm going to go back to the edit register page. I'm going to find an empty register. Let's use register 11 next to our previous one, and I'm going to go into edit mode. You'll see an option here for auto insert. When I hit that, the menu will begin recording my menu actions. This is useful for working with frame memories, which we primarily use from the menu. So, at frame memory 15, I'm going to find my live TV ident, and I'm going to load it. Just like that. When we go back to macro auto insert, which I can use the shortcut at the top of, you'll see a new menu line has added, with some internal data for the switcher to reference. This menu action is loading the frame memory that I've just loaded. Then we're going to add a new event, which is going to be the key snapshot that we just saved. So I'm going to go to the event menu. The event menu is going to offer you lots of options. We're looking for key snapshot to recall. So you can see in the alphabetical list, key snapshot's just here. I'm going to grab that. Then it's going to offer me all the parameters I might need. So our ME is going to be program preview, our key is going to be key 8, and our register is going to be 1. So straight away, the key snapshot's going to recall, and the frame memory is going to be there. We'll give that a pause of a couple of frames. I'm going to add a new event. Go over to pause, and let's just do a 5-frame pause. Then I want to turn my key on. So I'm going to add a new event, and this time it's going to be key auto transition. Same again, program preview, key 8. I can even choose the transition time if I want to, so let's make that a 10-frame mix. And direction, to on, to off, or any. This is really important as it allows us to force a key on if it's already on, or force a key off if it's already off, or any, which will just toggle it. For now, we're just going to go with any, so that this macro will always just toggle that bug on or off. Finally, I'm going to store that. You'll find this time that macro 11 I've just created will mix that bug on or off in the corner. The nice thing about this is if we take that bug off, and I go to my frame memory menu, and let's say we've accidentally loaded something else in there. So you can currently see on the output of frame memory 15 is an image instead of the correct. If I just mix the key on, we've got half an image on screen. However, if I use my new macro 11, the correct frame memory will be loaded and then mixed on in the corner. So doing things with a macro like that is a really easy way to insulate against issues we might have on our production with incorrect frame memories, incorrect sourcing, or keying issues. If I move the key around, you'd also see the same effect, where the effect was corrected before it was brought to air. A few little extra bits we can do with macros before we wrap up here. is running macros from other areas of the panel. So let's take macro 11 that we've just done there and think about what else we could do with it. First of all, attachments. If you come to your crosspoint pad and go to the macro page, we have some options. The first of which I want to look at is macro attach enable. Turn that on. We then have two buttons at the bottom, pre-macro and post-macro. These allow us to attach a macro in different ways. Pre and post refer to whether the macro triggers before or after the normal button function it's attached to. We can also do what's called a replace attachment by holding both together. A replace attachment is often the most useful way of attaching a macro. What I'm going to do is attach our button here, and you'll see we get a green indicator light. That indicates that a macro is attached. The indicator lights can be turned on or off in the menu, but we've left them on for this so it's nice and clear. When I hit that button, instead of changing utility 2 to graphics 1, which is what this row is delegated for, the macro will fire. I can attach that anywhere on the switcher, and it's an easy way to access my macros. Say if I'm cutting a program, I can reach up and I can flick my live bug on or off just like that. One other thing that's worth knowing, in the register menu, I have a search function. I can choose to select registers by number, if I know the number, but if I don't know the number, I can search. So I'm going to search for my clip cut macro. And you'll find the list is shrunk down to just the macros that match the search term. That's really useful when trying to find something and I can't remember where it is. For example, my wide shot camera macro from a previous video, if I search wide, will come up straight away at register 23. That really helps because we have 999 macros available in the system, and it allows you to put macros in sensible places and group by number and then find it easily with the search function later. So that's just an introduction to some of the new editing techniques on the MLS-X1 and a basic rundown of how you can use macros in your production.